Hey, 8th place out of 16. Not bad for my first time out. Yep, feeling pretty good about myself right now.
Some people would be embarrassed by a run like that. You probably won a freaking trophy. A little advice for next time. Try finishing ahead of the other racers.
God, sorry, Mom. If you want context for ESPN Extreme Games, all you need to do is look at Road Rash by Electronic Arts. Originally released for the 16-bit Sega Genesis, Road Rash was a combat-oriented motorcycle racing series that saw a graphically overhauled 1994 release on the 3DO. Both Extreme Games and 1994's Road Rash used a mixture of polygons, pre-rendered sprites, and 90s tude to achieve similar results. You can see in the footage here that the games share an aesthetic, and they both focus on battling other racers. A port of Road Rash would eventually hit the PlayStation in its first year on the market, but at launch, if you wanted a racing game that allowed you to punch and kick the competition, your only option was ESPN Extreme Games. That's all Extreme Games is in concept, but it forges its own identity in execution. Players pick one of 4 extreme modes of transport and compete in races across 5 exotic vacation spots across the globe, including South America, Rome, and, Utah. Utah's pretty extreme too, I guess. In terms of racing gear, your options include mountain bikes, inline skates, skateboards, and the now all but forgotten street luge. No matter which you pick, you're placed in a pack of 15 competing racers who use a mixture of equipment, and you've got to smack your way through them on the way to the finish line. While there's combat in ESPN Extreme Games, you also need to pass through gates found throughout each course in order to make progress. Yellow gates give you points, increasing your standings in the seasonal rankings. Green gates give you cash you can use to purchase better equipment, and blue gates act as switches, removing obstacles in your path and sometimes opening up shortcuts. While the game's mix-and-match approach to sporting equipment is interesting in concept, it's actually really unbalanced. The mountain bike will vault over smaller obstacles it strikes, for instance, while skateboarders and inline skaters will trip and fall, losing them several seconds as they recover. Street lugers have it even worse, since pretty much everything on the track is a deadly hazard to them. They can't even jump. These courses are actually really impractical for street lugers. I'd imagine slamming into a stack of tires feet first at 90 miles an hour is a great way to break both of your legs, along with most of the other bones in your body. Seriously, just stick with the bike. ESPN Extreme Games was the first PlayStation game credited to Sony Interactive Studios America, an in-house team based in Foster City, California. The same team also created other early PS1 sports games like NFL Game Day and NHL Face-Off before it was rebranded as 989 Studios. We'll see these guys again in this series before too long. ESPN Extreme Games was produced as part of an existing licensing agreement between ESPN and Sony. Before it established Sony Interactive Studios America, Sony produced a handful of ESPN licensed sports games for the Sega Genesis, Super NES, and Sega CD in the early 90s under its Sony ImageSoft publishing label. The sequel to ESPN Extreme Games dropped the ESPN license when it premiered in 1996 as Too Extreme. Sony also opted to not renew the license when it came time to re-release Extreme Games as part of its greatest hits budget line, cutting the game's FMV sequences, dropping all ESPN logos, and relaunching it as One Extreme. So, about those FMV sequences. ESPN Extreme Games has a bunch of video clips that play before and after each race, and they exist only to crush your self-esteem. This lady is ruthless, and she'll yell at you whenever you finish anywhere outside the top 3.
I didn't know these things had reverse. This is a race.
Finish last and you're pretty much a worthless sack of trash.
Last. Absolutely, positively, the last person to finish the race. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Don't think so, scrub.
And God help you if you finish in 14th place.
Yeah, I'm really glad we all wasted our time and came out here and watched you race like that. I hope your family wasn't watching.
Jesus. You're probably going to get yelled at a lot if you pick the easy difficulty mode, since easy in this context means you're making it easy for the competition to stomp all over you. Even if you make few mistakes, the computer-controlled players are always going to be far ahead of you in the race, and you have few opportunities to catch up. Playing on hard or extreme mode is actually a little easier because of the strange way Extreme Games handles difficulty. See, harder difficulty modes place more obstacles on each track, and hard and extreme modes place so much crap in your way that your AI-controlled opponents can't dodge it all. You'll often speed past large clumps of computer players who aren't programmed to deal with the harder difficulties, and end up getting stuck together. In addition to a single-player exhibition mode, Extreme Games features a split-screen versus mode for 2 players. It lowers the graphical detail and cuts back on the frame rate, but otherwise it works fine if you've got a buddy who has the patience to sit through the game's long tracks, which can take upwards of 6 or 7 minutes to complete. There's also a season mode that puts you on a repeating circuit across all of the game's tracks. Passing through green gates and racking up cash in this mode is crucial, as your opponents will also be upgrading their gear throughout. One other noteworthy thing about Extreme Games is that it's one of the first PlayStation games that allows you to save your progress to a memory card. These things weren't bundled with the system at launch, and you had to buy them separately for $20 each. They're almost comically small in terms of storage, offering 1 megabit of writable space. This space was divided up into blocks, and each card could hold up to 15 blocks of save data. Depending on the types of games you play and the save files you're creating, you ran the risk of filling up a memory card very quickly. ESPN Extreme Games' save data takes up 1 memory card block, while Maxis's A-Train fills up all 15 blocks of a single memory card. Many of the first PlayStation games gave players the choice of using passwords instead of memory cards, including ESPN Extreme Games. But there's a quirk in the way Extreme Games handles passwords that allows you to input random codes until you find one that works. You often end up with some really glitchy results. Here I'm continuing a season I didn't start, riding a non-existent bike that I bought with infinite money. So, what does it look like when you ride a bike that doesn't exist? Oh. Despite its obvious attempt to bite Road Rash's style, Extreme Games has a mid-90s charm of its own, and it's still decently fun to play. Extreme Games spawned 2 sequels before Sony laid the series to rest in 1999. That's the same year that Activision launched Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which took the extreme sports genre in a new direction and became one of the PlayStation's defining franchises. In 1995, Extreme Games was just a little bit ahead of its time, and today it serves as an overlooked predecessor to something much greater. But enough about extreme sports. What about those mundane professional sports? The PlayStation launched with 2 sports games in September of 1995, and we'll take a look at them in the next episode with NBA Jam Tournament Edition and Power Serve 3D Tennis. This one's a 2-parter, so it'll take us a little longer to produce, but hopefully it'll be worth the wait. See you soon!